Want to see a turn 2 win? Sweet, so do I. Here's your opening hand. There's a chance you already know what's about to go down, but for completion's sake, let's walk through it. First turn, play Forest, play Amulet of Vigor, say go. I get that this doesn't look like much, but we're going to win the game next turn, I promise. Turn 2, cast the second Amulet of Vigor. Now play Simic Growth Chamber. 2 Amulet of Vigor triggers go on the stack, as well as the Growth Chamber Zone enters the battlefield trigger. The Amulet trigger isn't a replacement effect, so since you've got 2 amulets, their triggers stack. Put the Simic Growth Chamber trigger on the stack first, targeting itself, followed by the 2 Amulet triggers. As you can see, thanks to our handy stack visualizer, the Amulet triggers will resolve first. So let the first one resolve. Now Simic Growth Chamber's untapped. There's still that other Amulet trigger on the stack though, so before that resolves, tap the Growth Chamber. Now the second Amulet trigger resolves and our Karoo land untaps. The only trigger left on the stack now is the one from the Simic Growth Chamber. Before that resolves, tap the Growth Chamber for mana again. Now the last trigger resolves and the Simic Growth Chamber comes back to hand. Cast Explore. Now play Simic Growth Chamber again and do the same thing we did the first time you played it. Now cast Summoner's Pact. If you don't have any experience with the packs from Future Sight, they're 5 cards that all do a thing that you don't have to pay for until your next upkeep. And if you don't pay for them, you lose the game. That's not an exaggeration, you straight up lose the game. It says right on the card. Despite such a steep drawback, the pack mechanic is actually pretty broken. For example, if you can win the game before you need to pay the upkeep cost, then you got a free spell. And in this scenario, you are indeed about to win the game. The card you're going to get is Primeval Titan. Prime Time, the Scourge of Commander and the patron saint of rampant growth enthusiasts, is the centerpiece of the deck, hence the name Amulet Titan. Since you have enough mana left over to cast Prime Time, go ahead and cast it. For its enters the battlefield trigger, fetch Boros Garrison and Slayer's Stronghold. 5 triggers are going to go on the stack when they hit the battlefield. 2 untapped triggers for both lands, thanks to the 2 amulets, and Boros Garrison's bounce trigger. Put the Boros Garrison trigger on the stack first, and then you can stack the other ones pretty much however you want. For the sake of demonstration, we'll do them like this. Let the Boros Garrison and the Slayer's Stronghold untap once. Before they untap a second time, activate the Slayer's Stronghold targeting the Primeval Titan. Then both lands untap again. Before the Boros Garrison's bounce trigger resolves, activate the Stronghold again, targeting the Primeval Titan again. With the Boros Garrison bounce trigger, you can bounce anything you want except for the garrison itself. We'll just bounce the forest because who cares? Okay, Primeval Titan is now a 10-6 with haste and vigilance. Go ahead and attack with it. When it attacks, you get to search up 2 more lands. This time we're grabbing Vesuva and Sunhome Fortress of the Legion, and Vesuva is going to enter the battlefield as a copy of the Boros Garrison. 5 triggers go on the stack, just like when the original Boros Garrison and the Slayer Stronghold hit the battlefield, so we'll stack our triggers similarly. Let Sunhome and the Imposter Boros Garrison untap, but before the second round of untapped triggers resolve, tap the Boros Garrison for mana. Now the Boros Garrison untaps. Before the bounce trigger resolves, you can tap it again and activate the Sunhome, giving Primetime double strike. With the bounce trigger, you can bounce, I don't know, the Vesuva, I guess? Doesn't even matter. You're attacking with a 10-6 double striker on the second turn. They're dead. That's the basic idea behind Amulet Titan. Put an Amulet of Vigor in play, stick a Primeval Titan, win the game. That sounds pretty simple, but the thing about Amulet Titan is that its opening hands aren't very intuitive and the combo isn't really on the battlefield. The deck just wins in a flurry of triggered abilities all in one turn. The counterintuitiveness extends to the utility cards, so let's walk through those real quick. The deck is almost half lands, so the deck plays 2 Kamigawa block cards that got 0 recognition while they were standard legal. Sakura Tribe Scout and Azusa Lost But Seeking. In the common instances where you don't win on the second turn of the game, these 2 cards help to mitigate the drawback of the Karoo lands. They're called Karoo lands because of the old card Karoo. This deck is possible because of how Karoo lands and Amulet of Vigor interact. This is important to remember because mulligan decisions are one of the most skill-intensive aspects of playing this deck. Basically, it's really hard to keep a hand without one of the green Karoo lands. Boros Garrison doesn't count. You actually want Boros Garrison, Slayer's Stronghold, Sunhome, and Vesuva in your library when you cast Primeval Titan so that you can fetch them up, untap them, and activate them all in one turn. You can think of Sakura Tribe Scout and Azusa as a hedge against all the times you don't have access to an Amulet of Vigor. One of those 2 creatures alongside a Karoo land can give you access to a surprising amount of mana. In fact, some of you might remember the previous iteration of this deck, Amulet Bloom. That deck was really good. So good, in fact, that Summer Bloom got banned. Since the Summer Bloom ban, the player base at large has been pretty lukewarm on the whole Amulet of Vigor Primeval Titan idea. It's also really difficult to play. That's definitely a contributing factor. What I'm getting at here is that while Azusa Lost But Seeking was present in the original version, you can think of Sakura Tribe Scout as kind of a replacement for Summer Bloom. Obviously, Sakura Tribe Scout isn't as broken as Summer Bloom is, but it's still really powerful contextually. With access to all the mana that Sakura Tribe Scout and Azusa can provide, you can transmute Teleria West. Transmute's the Dimir mechanic in Ravnica, and it originally appeared on spells. Teleria West is a land, making the transmute a little weird. When you transmute Teleria West, you can only get something with converted mana cost 0, which is actually fine because a lot of stuff in the deck costs 0. And if none of these spells tickle your fancy, the deck's got loads of utility lands. Ghost Quarter nukes an opposing land. Radiant Fountain combos with Karuz to give you an edge against burn. Cavern of Souls keeps counter magic off your prime times. Bajuka Bog exiles graveyards. And Colony Garden neutralizes an opposing Liliana of the Veil. But for the most part, Teleria West is going to transmute for Summoner's Pact, which is going to search up a Primeval Titan, and then you're just going to win from there. But if you don't have an Amulet of Vigor, fear not. You can always just search up Hornet Queen, which, more often than not, will buy you more than enough time to dig to an Amulet of Vigor to set up the Primeval Titan win, and on and on and on. This deck does two things really well. Win with Primeval Titan, and stall long enough to win with Primeval Titan. Ancient Stirrings is a card that people like to shout about getting banned from time to time, but it also features in this deck. Sometimes it'll dig for a Karoo land to get some mana going, but most often you're trying to find an Amulet of Vigor with it. The nice thing about Amulet of Vigor, which we've already demonstrated, is that it's great in multiples. The deck operates alright without an Amulet of Vigor, but the difference in the games with an Amulet and the games without one are night and day. The rest of the cards are pretty straightforward. Engineered Explosives, a card that can be searched up with the aforementioned Teleria West, beats Bogles and Humans on the spot. Explorer provides card draw and extra land drops, two things this deck really wants. Dismember kills a thing, and so does Reclamation Sage, which can also be searched up by Summoner's Pact, which can be searched by Teleria West. You get the idea. Everything in this deck either wins the game, searches for something that wins the game, or stalls an opponent just long enough to win the game. The deck's pretty under the radar. By playing Amulet Titan before it gets a ton of press, you're gonna have a big advantage against the prospective field. Or, you know, maybe there's another weirdo Modern combo deck I missed. We've done a bunch so far, but Modern is bonkers, and there's always another deck to unpack. So, let me know what your favorite Modern deck is in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, or Pretty Deece in general, please, for the love of God, like and subscribe. Because your comments are basically the reason we're allowed to do this stuff. And while you're at it, I write a newsletter for TCGplayer every week, and there's a link in the description if you're into that. So, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.